Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Dynamics 365 Tech Talk. Today's topic is asset management and field service integration. My name is Brad, and I'll be your moderator today. We are broadcasting this session through Teams live events, and the audio can be heard through your device speakers. This session is being recorded on behalf of the Microsoft Corporation. When you join this event, your name, email address, and/or phone number may be viewable by other session participants in the attendee list. By joining, you're agreeing to this experience. The recording will be available on the Tech Talks Community Dynamics page within the coming weeks. If you have questions for the presenters or need support, please use the Q&A panel located on the right side of your screen. Our presenters will be responding to your questions throughout the event and in the Q&A segment near the end. Thank you for your patience during these announcements. Presenting for us today from Microsoft, we have Anne Krupke. Anne, over to you.
Thanks, Brad, and thank you everyone for joining us for this Tech Talk today. We're going to talk about how you can integrate asset management and field service in Dynamics. I'm going to give us the kickoff, but our main presenter today is Murray Fife, who is a principal technical specialist here at Microsoft. This is part 4 of a 5-part Tech Talk series that we've been producing on the topic of asset management and Dynamics 365. We started with an overview session in September on the asset management module. In October, we did a deep dive in the sensor data intelligence add-in, as well as the process of acquiring and installing assets. As I mentioned today, we're going to talk about integrating field service with asset management. And in November, we will close out the series with a session on how to maintain assets. The recordings for the previous 3 sessions can be found on the Dynamics community page or accessed at aka.ms/asset management tech talks. With that, I'll hand it over to Murray to take us away.
Thanks, Anne. So good morning, good evening, good afternoon to everybody. And as Anne said, we're going to be presenting on asset management, but particularly how we can leverage asset management and field service capabilities together. And this is an interesting thing that we can do, and there's some standard integrations, and also so we can investigate, or will investigate, some of the customizations that we can do to further extend what's available out of the box. So for the next hour, I'm going to sort of talk about why asset management and field service are better together. And then we'll look at some of these standard integration points like purchasing and products and so forth. But the main goal is to show you how to install the asset management solution, and then how to configure the dual write integration, and then what that looks like in the system. But also, as we've been working with this, we've got the opportunity to go out and extend this through custom dual write maps, and also through automation. So at the end of the session, we're going to look at those. I can show you some of the examples that I have, and maybe that will give you a little bit of food for thought. Now, before we move on, this isn't a beginner's course for asset management and the integration. We're going to be talking about a number of things and showing asset management and field service working together. We're going to be showing Dataverse and administering Dataverse, and also we're going to be talking about the dual write capabilities and how we integrate these. So for you to get the most out of this, it is good that if you, from a knowledge standpoint, you have a good understanding of asset management and field service, which I'm guessing most people have. If you're here, you need to understand Dataverse and the Power Platform, and also have some experience with dual write, or at least at the end of this have the want to go out and learn some of these so that you can get the most out of the system. Now, also, we want to have an open mind, because a lot of times asset management and field service are treated as 2 separate products, and either your cats or your dogs, and no one plays together. But in this case, we're going to show you how, by combining the best of both product capabilities, we can actually have a better solution, a cross-workload solution that that solves multiple problems at once. Now, I always start when talking about asset management as a module within Dynamics 365 is a little bit unique, because we can treat this as a standalone workload and then surround it with other technologies. So with asset management being at the core, we can integrate with IoT through sensor data intelligence, which was the last tech talk that we had. It also has links into remote assist and guides, which is a really interesting technology to take advantage of, and also field service can complement the product. So as a sort of base spoke product, we can expand out, and then also when you think about some of the capabilities that we use in asset management, and it's almost like a mini supply chain implementation, because it could have some planning and some planning and inventory and procurement and all of these other things sort of linked into it. So it's but it is a good product that doesn't require a lot of extra wiring up to actually get up and running. Now, don't try to read too much of the slide, because I think it is a little bit small, but this is, when I look at asset management, I look at it by workload, by task within the organization. And when we look at the asset management functionality, we've got the management and the planning and maybe the acquiring of the assets through fixed assets, through procurement. And then also asset management has scheduling capabilities and also execution capabilities. Now, but in itself, it's the scheduling and the execution is pretty good. But when we go out and we look at the capabilities that field service offer, then there's a little bit of overlap, but field service doesn't have quite as much capabilities around the management and the planning, but it does have really good capabilities with scheduling and execution. So the whole theme of what I'm presenting today is that it's not one or the other. We can go out and sort of take advantage of some of these capabilities in field service for asset management. So if we look at what field service does to complement the asset management, then a lot of it is the streamlining of the execution. It's got a really good handheld interface. We can have questionnaires or checklists being performed on the handheld that has like geocoding capabilities, where people can check in based off where they are in the world as they're getting close to an asset. And if we have assets that are field assets, which could be owned by the company or could be owned by the customer, then there's additional capabilities that we have around the routing and the scheduling and the optimization of our resources that get out there. So field service has a lot of bright points in it. But when we take those two different workloads and then meld them together, then these are the capabilities that we can have. And as you can see, within the scheduling and execution, I've got a lot of field service that I can take advantage of if we go out and if we take the work orders and move them over into field service itself. So rather than looking at things as separate silos of products, then we can look at it as a combined product, a cross workload product, and give us some additional capabilities. Now, before I start talking particularly about the asset management integration that we have, I want to roll back a little bit and talk about the standard integration that's available between supply chain management and all the Dataverse products. So that's customer service, field service, and even project operations, but we're not going to talk about that particularly today. And when we implement the default integration between the finance and operations, and the Dataverse elements, using dual write as primarily as the integration point, then a lot of the information within Dataverse, the Dataverse applications, gets enriched a lot. There's some more data structures that get added into it, particularly, for example, the concept of a company. So field service doesn't have a concept of multiple companies that are working together and segregating out the information, but the dual write integration for the standard configuration does do that. Also, it harmonizes the products and the warehouses within the Dataverse environment. It also adds additional things like linking of the accounts and to the customers to the accounts, and even goes out and allows you to perform functions like purchase order generation within, in this case, field service, that creates a purchase order back in the purchasing area within supply chain management. So this allows, gives field service a couple more capabilities as well. And then later on, we're going to talk about the customer asset integration, so the asset to customer assets, and also the functional locations and the hierarchies that get created when we turn on the asset management integration. So something to point out is that the inventory gets enhanced a little bit within the Dataverse. We can have all of the warehouses that are set up within supply chain over within field service. We can also enrich the products, and there's going to be a lot more information then when we look at the products within supply chain management. Then they're going to be the same as the ones over in field service, along with the same units of measure and pricing that's associated with it as the data is shared. There's also a service that gets delivered out of the box, which is for inventory. So we can go and do a lookup directly of inventory on hand within supply chain from the Dataverse platform. So this is useful if we want to see, do we have enough product in stock based off our financial inventory rather than the perpetual field service inventory. And then also we can go out and we can do things like purchase orders within the system. So let's take a look at these, and let me just switch over to my demo system. And we go to here. So I'm over here in one of my environments, and what I can do is if I go out and look at, for example, some of the settings that I have here, then with the standard integration, all of the, oops, let me go back to the products. All of our products move that we have set up within finance and operations move over here into field service, along with all the standard naming and also pricing information and units of measure and so forth. So I've got here within our product some additional information and also some integration information showing where these products came from. So this is useful because if we do want to use asset management and field service together, then we want to make sure that people can't type in a product that exists in field service but doesn't exist in asset management. Also, what we can do is, if I look at the inventory, then when we turn on the standard integration, then what we're going to see is we're going to see all of the supply chain management warehouses are going to show up here along with the prefix of the company code. So we're going to be using this in a second as we go and do things. We can also go out and look at the product and availability. Now, if I go out and drill into a product, then we have a standard integration from here for an on-hand inventory lookup. What this is doing is it's going over to supply chain management, looking up the actual inventory, and then returning that information back. So we're going to see some more information than is available within field service. For example, we're going to see how much has been reserved, how much is on order, as opposed to being ordered. So a lot of the supply chain concepts start showing up here within the view. And then also, as I said before, if we go back, we also have all of our purchase orders, goods receipts, and invoices available over here within field service. So if, for example, I want to go out and create a new purchase order, then if I created this within finance and operations, then it would automatically number this for me. But I'm just going to give it a name here. And then I'm going to choose my vendor. And then also choose my invoice account. And then I'm also going to, I'm not defaulting in the company here, but I can go in and choose my default company and save this. So now this is going out, and this is using dual write to go out and add the record into supply chain as a purchase order, validate that it's right, and then commit the transaction here. And as you can see, it just ran pretty quickly for me. And now if I go out and look at my procurement and sourcing, look at my purchase orders, then what we'll see is we'll see that a new purchase order has been created, which is this one here, the field service purchase order number 8. And it's going to have no lines associated with it at this point. I can go in and I could go into the products as a field service technician, and I'm going to look C001. So I need a keyboard here, and then I'm just going to save that. Oops. And also I'm going to associate this to a warehouse. So again, this is going back and it's doing the transactional update in the system. And then if I return back here to finance and operations, then we've now got the line that's been added into the purchase order here within procurement. So now we can go, a field service technician can go out and request some items that they don't have, whatever they need, and then this is going to allow them to request it. The purchase order is going to go back to the proper system, supply chain. It's going to be go through the proper ordering process, and then they can go and do a receipt, or we can do a receipt here, and then the technician can get notified about it. So this is standard integration that we have within just within the standard supply chain management dual write points. Now, let's talk about the sort of extending this. So we've already got the dual write configured with finance and supply chain and everything sort of talking as much as you want it to. But now what we want to do is we want to extend this out and add in additional capabilities for the asset management integration. So we do this through the Power Platform Admin Center, and we do this by applying one of the new solutions that we have for asset management into our environment. And then after we've done that, then that's going to allow us to apply the solution within the dual write workspace. And then that will give us all of our asset tracking information. Then we can turn that on so we can start running it. So let's take a look at that. And I'll show you how that works. So I'm here in the Power Platform Admin Center. And this is, if you're not familiar with this, this is where we have all of our different Dataverse environments that we set up. And this is also where you apply solution packages and updates to your environment. Now, I'll go into Mike's demo just for a second. And what we'll see when we go into here, we'll see all of these solution maps have been are available. So he's installed the dual write capability, but he hasn't installed the asset management app. So if I click on the install app, then we're going to see that we've got a dual write solution for asset management. And all we have to do here is we just have to click on that and go next. Again, we're assuming that we have the other components also configured, but let me back out of here. And I'll go into my environment. And let's look at the resources. And what will happen is we'll have this asset management dual write solution applied to environment. So this is just a common way that within Dataverse or customer service or field service that we go and add these capabilities into the system. So this is the first part of what we need to do. The next part is needs to be done within data management. So I'm just going to open up the data management workspace, and then I'll show you the final steps that we need to do as soon as this refreshes. Okay. So I'm just going to go down here, find my data management workspace. And from here, what we'll be able to do is we'll be able to get into the dual write view. Now, or if you haven't seen the dual write, then this is where we map between the supply chain and the Dataverse entities. So what we can, and we'll see that in here, I've got all of these data models, which I've got. For example, I could look at my lifecycle states, and inside of here, this is running, so we don't have to do any syncing, but we have this mapping that we can also go out and extend within the system. When you experience this for the first time, then you won't see these asset management maps, because what you need to do is you need to go and apply the solution. And by installing the solution into Dataverse, that will give you this solution that we can apply, and that will that goes out and it creates the maps for us and sets up all of the standard integrations that we may want to do. Then after you've done that, then you just work through the maps just like you do with all of the other dual write integrations, and then turn them on, and there'll be an initial sync. You can correct any data errors which you may have within your system, and then that will then allow the assets to be integrated. So go back to here. So what does this give you? So this is where we start getting down into the meat of the asset management within the system. What this gives us is, the first thing is an interesting sort of artifact that we can take advantage of. There's the solution creates a separate model-driven app for asset management that runs in Dataverse. So that means that there's an app that we can access through the mobile client. So that's the same client that field service uses right now, and it just surfaces up the model-driven app. It gives us some metrics that we can look at in just a second, but also it gives us a way to browse our assets in a standalone manner. Now, we can use this as a mobile app just for managing our assets if we want to, even if we don't have field service. So that's an interesting concept that we can do, and we could create dashboards from this, and it's going to allow us to see the same asset management information within Dataverse. It's going to allow us to see the lifecycle states, the asset types, the location types, warranties, the manufacturer and model information, all within this one thing, and I'll show you that in just a second. But also what it does is it extends out the asset information. So it adds in the concept of a company code to the asset. It also adds in some maintenance information, which we'll see, for example, when was the asset put into service, how long has it been running, and so forth. And then it also adds it improves the functional locations. So it takes advantage of the hierarchical locations that we've set up within asset management, and gives us parent locations, or I think those were added to field service, but only because of this integration. And then also it gives us a different view onto the assets, a different tree view that we can use if we don't want to go out, in addition to the standard view that we've got on the system. So what I want to do here is show you this portion in action. So over here within, let's just start. So if I'm going out here and if I'm looking at all my assets within the system, then I'm just going to start off and back here, the data management, like that. So I'll be able to see all of the assets that I've got in the system. So let's just pop this up. We'll wait for that to load and then I'll go back to that. Okay. So, but as I mentioned before, we get a new asset management model-driven app. So here you can see some of the common components that we have within the asset management over in the supply chain that are available here within Dataverse. So I could go out and I could look at my maintenance assets, and I could filter these out, and we could see that I've got a number of stud guns that I've got in the system over here within asset management. But also in this case, I've got my stud gun that has a set of sub assets associated with it. Now, if I return back to here, go back to asset management and look at my assets, then what we'll see is, oops, if I filter these out, then we've got the same information showing up here, and including the asset tree. So for this stud gun, we've got the air gun, the airline, and the condenser. These are all harmonized and shared between the systems. Now, say for example, we wanted to take some of this information and bring it back over into supply chain management. So say for example, you've got someone who finds an asset and then they need to create a new asset. Then we can do that through either through asset management, or we could do it through field service through the Dataverse environment. So what I can do here is, just 1 second. Okay. So I could create a new stud gun. And then I'm going to put that in USMF, in my entertainment company. And then also what I'm going to do is I'm going to use all of the asset types which I set up within asset management to go out and look up this information. So I can also look up that this is going to be in my lumberyard, and this is in my work area. And then I'm going to make this active. And then my maintenance asset ID is SG005, and I can save that. So now this is going back and it's using the dual write map to update that information for me. So if I return back here and refresh the page, then now I've got the stud gun is configured along with the current lifecycle state of active, and then we can go out and we can start managing this just like we could if it was an asset that was created within asset management. Now I could do the same thing and create the asset here within asset management, and it's going to show up within field service. But thought I'd like to show it going backwards within the system. And also now we've got all of this maintenance information. So this is $299 for the stud gun, and we acquired it today. Now, if we have, we're even seeing here within Dataverse things like the fixed asset information. We can't change that here on the Dataverse side, but we can. But if we update that information and send it over within asset management, then that information is going to show up here along with any other information that we've got. So I'm just going to save that. Now, so this is some of the additional asset maintenance information that we have, but also we have the functional locations that show up. So just like in asset management, if I return back to here, if I look at all of my locations and then maybe filter these out, then we've got all of these locations that have been set up in the system, and I added these within asset management. But if I go out and filter these here within the field within the asset management app, then we're actually going to see all the same information is showing up and it's being maintained in the system. Something that's nice is that we can also go out and look at the locations, and then I could show the assets here. And if I look in my lumber area and think I was putting all those stud guns in line 1, then we can see not only all of the functional locations that we're breaking out, but also the assets. In this case, we've got the condensers, and I think somewhere in here I've got some air conditioning units within the system. Now, so this is asset management, but if we go over and look at the field service application, which is where we want to start having this this integration showing up, then what we'll see is we have within field service, we've got the same views that we had within the asset management model driven app. And because we're using the dual right to update the customer assets here within field service rather than creating new types of assets. And then I can also go out and look at the functional locations. Now, a little bit of a benefit of this is that when we go out and when we start looking at some of these items, then we can, there are some really neat things that we can do within field service, which include, I think, we can add 3-dimensional models directly into here. We can go out and manage activities. And also when we're inside of a models-driven app, we can't really do this in supply chain yet, but we can go out and we can have a connected chat within this application that's based on this asset that would go over to Teams. So there's some additional integration capabilities that we may want to look at. Now, before I change gears and look at some of the customizations, I thought I'd show one other little trick that helps helps sort of make asset management and field service just a little bit closer, and that's embedding field service directly into these into the desktops that we have within supply chain management. Because we normally there's normally 2 different people that are doing 2 different jobs, but there may be some scenarios where you have a supply chain person or asset management person that may want to go out and look into other information within the system or within field service, just to if we have work orders integrated and information flowing backwards and forwards. So we can go out and do that, and what I'll do is I'll show you the trick on how we do that. So whenever we're in, let me go. Okay. So when we're in in field service, then maybe what we want, let me close that down. Maybe we want to see all of the bookings. Field service has this concept that you've got a work order and then you book someone to it, and then they're assigned to the work, and then that's also how we go out and do the scheduling and a lot of other things. So maybe we'd want to have this go out and see who's been scheduled to this job before, if we're not getting the information automatically coming back from field service into asset management. And we do that just by embedding it in the workspace. But if we embed it into the workspace as it is, then it's going to look a little bit messy, because it has the menu bar and it has the navigation pane down the side. So we just put some extra parameters in here. And the first one is CMD bar, command bar, and that is equals false. And then also we're going to say turn off the nav bar, and that's nav bar equals off. So I've put these two little qualifiers on the end of it. And what that does is that cleans up this view, so it doesn't have any navigation, it doesn't have any of that clutter around it that's useful when you're inside a field service to navigate, but not within Dynamics. And what we do is we can go into our main workspace, and we can personalize this. Try once more. Just do this. Try refreshing, and we're just going to paste in that URL and add it as a web page. So let me try this once more. Being finicky today. Okay, so for some reason Explorer is not allowing me to do that. Oh wait, here it is. So I'm just going to say I want to add a page, and I'm going to add a website, and then what it's going to do is it's going to ask me for the URL, which I'm going to bookings. I'm going to place that URL in there and just save it. So when this refreshes, we're going to have a new tile here, which should be bookings. And when I click on that, then we're going to see the field service view of the bookings. Try that once more. Come on. We're going to see the field service view of the bookings directly here within our workspace. So that's a little bit of a trick, but it does bring the two products just a little bit closer, so that we, as a user, we don't have to swap between different pages if we don't want to. So that's just how we can embed the field service directly into the views. Now, in the next couple of minutes before we go into Q&A, what we're going to talk about is some customization, and it's really not customization, it's configuration, because I'm going to talk about two things. I'm going to talk about additional dual write mappings, and then also using Power Automate or other automations to move data between different systems. And in this case, if we look at these two slides, I've got this slide and this slide, then on the left-hand side are all of the standard entities which we use within asset management, and on the right side are all the current dual write mappings that we have between them. And there is a case that we may want to have some of the other entities that are in asset management over in Dataverse. Now we can use dual write, but also we can use virtual entities. But I've found that if we use dual write to a first class entity within Dataverse, then we have a lot more control over what we can do with it around the triggers. So for those of you that are familiar with virtual entities, that's still a really good way to get data, and I use that a lot. But what I'm going to talk about here is just show you how we can go out and create custom dual write maps. So, and I've got a number of these that I've added myself, and one of them is a work order dual write entity, and it's not going to go to the field service work order. It's just going to go into its separate table, because then what we can do is we can watch that entity for a certain lifecycle state and then create a field service entity using Power Automate. So there's some capability, there's some tricks that we can use there that we may talk about. And when we go out and create these, then we're going to be able to add additional tables. We're going to be able to add additional fields and configure them. And I was initially afraid that this was going to be a developer task that needs to be done, but it's really not. It's more of a configuration. So let me quickly look at that, and then we'll move back to the PowerPoint. So this, let me change my environment. Okay, now let's go back to here. So there's a couple of things that you need to do in order to create a dual write mapping. And so, and what I've got here is I've got a solution where I've created, you need to create the tables in Dataverse where you're going to put these records. So here are all of the additional dual write integrations that I created, and you can see that I've got quite a few of them. Also, I've got some Power Automate flows there. But all I did is I went out, and in this case, I wanted to have the attributes over within Dataverse, so that then we could incorporate them into work order information within the system. So to do that, what you do is you create a table, and I added the key fields in here, including the company. And a lot of everything else that's sort of down here at the bottom is automatically created. It automatically creates a GUID that Dataverse requires, but we can have the asset type or the asset attribute here within this view. So I went out and I just created those. So now we've got a place where we can put all of this data. Then what we do is we return back to data management. And if I go and look at my dual write implementation that I have here, then what you want to do is you want to create a new mapping. And what a mapping does, if I look at the one that I created, then all we do is we say these are the fields that are already in asset management in the asset attributes table, and then we link it up to the table over here within Dataverse, and then we just say we say how do we want to transform these. And what I'm saying is the asset ID equals the asset ID, and I'm just moving these forward. So it's very, very simple to do. But there's no, we need to do one more thing here within this view where we need to go out and add the integration mappings here. So if I go back to dual write, then there's this concept of an integration key. And this is, if I look at my integrations, then if I look at as soon as I create that dual write mapping, then it's going to create an integration key sort of placeholder here. And then all I do is I say that this is the index. So this company, asset ID, and attribute type are really the key fields that we move through. So I'm going through this very quickly, but there's really good documentation on it. And if anyone needs help, then Fast Track can help, and I can even help as well. But after I do that, then let me see. Then I have all of these additional mappings. I think there's around about 20 or so that I created for this instance, that then send the information over to Dataverse. And then if I go and look at this table, like the asset attributes, close that down. If I look at the attribute and look at the data that's coming over, then we'll see all the tables that are here. got the asset attributes and the attribute types, and I can save that. And then I can go out and I can see all of my attributes that are coming off all of my assets. And then I can use those within model-driven apps. And then also I can do other things that I can do with a dual write entity that I can't do with a virtual entity right now. For example, you can't send a virtual entity to a Synapse Azure Data Lake, but you can with the real tables or the first class tables that you have here. So if you've extended asset management and you may want some additional fields to go over, then again, it's easy to modify the mappings, and that was just something that I wanted to point out. Now, the final area that we're going to talk about really quickly is creating other integrations. And we'll talk about this at the end with the considerations and so forth. But there are some things that you don't want to copy using dual write. Inventory transactions for sure, and some of the transactional information like work orders. And you don't want to do that because sometimes you don't want work orders to go to field service until they've been released by the planner. And the dual write will really just try to push the information over. So you have to find a different way to create integrations. And what I do, and I'll quickly sort of talk about this, is I use Power Automate based off the entities that I'm synchronizing over into field service through dual write to trigger an event and then go out and create the record. Because for integration of work orders to perform, you really just need to send the work order and the lines over and maybe the checklists over. And then when the work order gets completed, then you send the project transactions back to asset management, and you've got integration. It's a little bit harder than that, than the way that I'm making it sound. But we're using Dataverse and we've got full access to all of that information. So the going out and creating these integrations through Power Automate is pretty. It's relatively easy if you know Power Automate or Logic apps if you want to have more of a enterprise service bus sort of integration. And just to give you a sneak peek on that. Just a minute. Then as I've been tinkering with this, I've created a number of different automations here, and here's one that we won't go into in detail, but in order to get work orders from asset management over to field service, then this is how simple the flow is. It's not complicated. There's some lookups that you need to perform, but for me, as soon as I want to release out a work order, then I can actually do that here through the Power Automate flow. Now, as we sort of mentioned in the topic here, this is a bigger topic than we can talk about in the next 2 minutes or so before we go to Q&A. So this Anne may schedule this to be a future fast track topic for asset management that you all can take advantage of. Now, just as the other question is this just stuff that I've made up and I've sort of tinkered together? It's not. We've got a number of customers that are actually going out and using asset management and field service. The Melbourne Airport in Australia is one of them. They've rolled out integrate. They're using asset management for the planning. They're using field service for the execution. They're using dual write and some other capabilities to synchronize some of the harder parts within the system. And they're up and live. Another company that we don't necessarily talk about as much as we should is Microsoft. Some of our facilities management group are actually using asset management and field service for the maintenance and facility management of our Bellevue campus. So there's a thing, so we're actually doing this ourselves internally. So to wrap up, before I hand this back to Anne for questions, there's a couple of things that that you need to think about when you're doing this. You may want to add some security to the Dataverse or field service environment. You don't want just everything to be maintainable by the field service people for asset management. Also, dual ride is a good. I believe that dual ride is a good solution for master data. Something that isn't. You're not getting thousands of transactions every minute or so running through the system. Master data like the assets or the locations, then that's very slow moving once it's been set up. So that's where you want to use dual ride. It's not the best solution for some of the things that are time sensitive. You may want to use business events for that, or you may want to use some automations like I talked about with Power Automate. So not everything can be synchronized with dual ride is sort of my main theme. And then also before you roll out the asset management, you really need to have the supply chain and maybe the financial components configured with dual ride, because you'll want to have you'll probably want to have the customers and all the supply chain information, like the purchase orders, which comes in the standard supply chain solution package, and then products and units of measure and all of these other things before we go into asset management. So there's just a couple of things to think about. But at this point, I'm going to swap it over to Anne to talk about the additional resources, and then we'll see if there are any questions in the Q&A box.
Thank you so much, Murray, for that wonderful session. So as I mentioned at the beginning of our discussion, the previous recordings of our Tech Talk series are available at aka.ms/assetmanagementtechtalks. The asset management functionality is available. There are many articles on the doc site. We do recommend that you go check those out, although if you're attending this session, you're probably well aware of our doc site. There are learn paths, which are more guided learning tools for understanding how asset management works. And we encourage you to take use of our community resources, the Yammer group for communicating with other partners, users, and the product group, as well as our supply chain management forum. And always we welcome your feedback on the product by logging ideas on the ideas site. We do use that. I know recently we've included several ideas on our roadmap. So with that, let's move into any Q&A items that we still have open.
Yeah. Do you want me to address the first one on the licensing?
Sure, let's start with that.
Yeah. So
the question is, when you add a CE link in F&O, are you consuming another license?
Yeah, and so when you've got when you have any license, really whenever you have any license for F&O, it's going to include a team member license. The team member license gives you read access to both the Dataverse and also the F&O side. So, and it's the same if you have a CE license. If you've got a field service license, then that gives you a team member license, which gives you read access to anything within F&O. So as long as you're not transacting on any of those records within any of the field service records within F&O, and you're just using it as read only, then you don't need any additional licenses around that.
But if you're working in both systems, you need to be licensed for both systems.
Yeah, but for the most part, we see a good separation of the duties around the licenses. There's usually people that are doing the scheduling and the execution, and then on the asset management side, we've got the planning and the asset management as well.
Great. Is there any guidance for managing installed but unused dual write maps? If a customer has multiple solutions installed, they may, for example, have 100 different maps, but only use 60 of them. If they're going to set up a new environment, it's tedious to go line by line to figure out which ones they need to enable. Do you have any feedback on that, Murray?
Not really. So,
okay, that's all right.
I did. I forget who did it, but there was someone. I remember someone showed me that they'd gone out and created some. They'd created some sort of script that actually went out and made the transition a lot easier. But I can't remember who that was, unfortunately.
Okay, so we'll take that one as a follow-up item and get a more robust answer for that. We had another question about licenses for what you've shown us today. I think we covered that pretty well. If you're working in asset management, you need an asset management license. If you're working in field service, you need a field service license. If you're only working in one but need to view data in the other, then you only need one license. Did I summarize that correctly, Murray?
Yes, you did.
Okay.
And always double check with the licensing people.
Yes, the ultimate authority is the licensing guide. Absolutely. What do you recommend for transaction flow from Dataverse to asset management or project management and accounting?
Now there's already the data maps that we have for project management and project operations that are in the system. I think that's what you're talking about. So some of them are being done by dual write, but when you're going out and doing more custom things, as I was talking about with the work orders right now, then using something like Power Automate or Logic Apps, because Logic Apps allows you to go out and have some more controlled integrations, and I've seen some partners that use Logic Apps for that. Then those are good patterns for the integration.
I thought you kind of explained it throughout so virtual entities will just automatically update tables exactly. Dual write lets you decide which fields you want to map, but it's still that instantaneous update. And then Logic Apps or Power Platform allows you to control not only the mapping, but also the flow of information. So it depends on what your requirements are, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And finally, are there any features that will be available that are linked to asset management and field service with the newly announced supply chain platform? I think the answer to that is probably TBD. The supply chain platform that just was announced this past week is going to be connected to the other, to the Dynamics SCM system, to the other systems on the Microsoft platform. I don't have any details to share at this time, so stay tuned for more announcements around supply chain platform. That takes us to the end of our session. So thank you everyone for your questions. Thank you so much, Murray, for presenting, and I'll hand it back to Brad to close us out.
All right, thanks so much, Anne. To all of our attendees out there, I have posted a link to a short survey in the Q&A panel. We'd love to get your feedback on today's session and hear what you'd like to see in future events. Thank you for your participation on that. As a reminder, the recording of today's session will be available on the TechTalks Community Dynamics page within the coming weeks. And finally, to close today, I'd like to extend a big thank you to our presenters and audience for joining us. Have a great day ahead, everyone.